Did I get that right? I feel like I hope I got that right. Okay. Anyway, I was just thinking about something that I really wanted to see if I could flesh out in real time. I haven't developed the idea all the way through, but I would like to. And so let's see if we can do it. I was just outside on the porch and I was thinking about how, because I'm currently working on sort of assembling the knowledge that I have on mental mastery into like a document and then a presentation, and then I'll record it and I'll make it into sort of a comprehensive course, right? And but I was thinking about how tedious that work is, because God is the work tedious, my guy. I'm trying to clean up my language so that I can get monetized. Why is it so tedious to work on things like that, like more optional things? You know what I'm saying? And I thought about how sort of excruciating and it takes, how much more skill it took to feel engaged in a task that objectively was somewhat easier than the things I had gone through before. And then I stepped out of myself and I went back in time to, you know, a year ago and some change, when I had nothing, when I was sleeping on a mattress and I had access to nothing, and how engaged and absorbed I was in every moment of life, and how every feat back then felt way more, how do you say, rewarding to do. And it's like everything that you did, it's like if you didn't have food to eat and you had to go find out how to eat, or like my phone was broken for a while and I was having to hack into my phone with my laptop and connect the shit in Bluetooth with a broken screen, guessing where the buttons were because I couldn't see shit, and then going to a job interview and having to do all the documents and pull out my fucking laptop because I didn't have access to a phone, and you know, starting the job and trying to do the onboarding and pulling out a whole laptop and going weeks and months without a phone, and saving my checks up and not having $2 to catch the bus and all of these things. Why was this so much more fun? That was fun, dog. And it's not that it necessarily felt fun at the time, or maybe it was just my reflection after the fact, but it really is the case that something about being more immediately insecure, and insecure in an external sense, not an internal sense, where there's a lot of things to take care of and manage, and you're just less safe and secure, you know, financially, and you know, in those sort of ways. Why is that way more, why was that way more engaging, and what is it about growing into something that is more secure that makes you much less motivated to take care of the things? Now, there are some obvious explanations to this. If you don't have to, then you don't have to, or you might be more motivated because you don't have a choice but to be motivated. But I was always ambitious. Why is it that, like, and you could say that comfort kills, you could say that, you know, what everybody in the self-improvement spaces and things of that sort say, the discipline spaces, where they say that, like, if you engage in comforting things, but it's not that like, there was a degree of discomfort there. What I think, and it's a different kind of thought, it's a thought that you probably have never heard before, but my knowing everything that I know, and if you look through my videos that I have up, you'll know that my explanation is going to be somewhat mental and abstract and internal and spiritual in a sense. I look at these things sort of as levels, and this is kind of the thing that I want to explore in real time, and you tell me what you think about it in the comments after you leave a like. And but I sort of looked at it like levels. Like, there is a base level where everything is sort of immediate and it's immediately demanding and you have to act. And so fulfilling these things, these base level things, like, you know, food, shelter, money, all of these things that sort of gravitate towards you instantly, and they're also instantly, you can instantly work towards them, and they're also instantly way more gratifying. And as you move up the levels of security and optional things, it seems that it requires, because this is the way that I look at it, it doesn't feel like it's something that is objectively less rewarding. It just feels like it requires more skill to engage in and find rewarding. And so, why do you need skill? And what does that say about your level of internal mastery and development? Because for me, it feels like it took a much lower threshold of how do you say, skill to engage with the things that were much more immediately necessary and demanding, right? And you can imagine somebody that is way less developed than someone like you or someone like me, that they find the prospect of having to get a job or having to satisfy their immediate needs, or not having a place to sleep, or all these things, they might find that way harder to engage in. They might find it rewarding to an extent, but it's much more painful than it might be rewarding, and they sort of have to work up to the level of being able to engage with the thing. And so you can sort of, with that explanation, you can see that there kind of is a degree of levels to this engaging in life. And for me, the thing that I was working on earlier was this fucking 30-page long document that I had already written, but I had to refine because I hadn't touched it up in a while. And so I'm going through and rewording things and all of that, and it just felt like a drag. And then I realized, though, that if I focus on the thing and I readjust myself and realign myself internally, that I could engage with it better. But that takes skill, and that takes presence, and you know, that takes a little bit of internal work. And so what I realized is, and I went back into my mind and I thought about myself back in school and how I fucking hated school. I hated school. It was miserable. I'll take a sip of water. I hated school. And something about the thing placed in front of me, I don't think I ever had the internal skill to engage with it, but I also didn't understand why it was necessary. So the combination of these two things is why I could never get myself to do it. I didn't have the internal control and skill, and I also didn't see the benefit. A lot of people that do not find engaging with the immediate necessities of life engaging or rewarding, it's because they don't have the skill to meet it, or they don't understand why they should meet it, right? And so as you level up, right, a lot of the people that get success, and this is something that you'll hear a lot, this is something that you'll hear everywhere, right? Tell me you haven't heard this story of the person who was broke, who had nothing, who was in the ghetto, who had every reason to apply himself all the way because he had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And he put everything into that, and he made it. That famous rapper, that famous athlete, that famous actor, that person in your family who really made something of himself, and upon getting what he wanted, my bad, I'm sitting at a drum set if you didn't know that from the last video. This person, upon getting everything that he wanted, he settles down. He gets comfortable. The ambition sort of dries up. And so what is it about that level? It's because the things that drew him to be ambitious and motivated and driven and disciplined, although I'm not even sure that I would say disciplined, because it was more like motivation than discipline if it disappears once the motivation is over, right? Right? Doesn't that make sense? And so that ambition, essentially, what the way I see it is this, and this might be something that's really interesting to you because it's pretty damn interesting to me. This first level, and when you're under this first level, which is financial stability, which is security, which is whatever thing that's eating away at you that you don't have now, and that I didn't have a year ago, right? This level, and you're here, and you want to get there so fucking bad that you do everything that you can to get there. Once you're here, what you're supposed to do in the process of evolution, in the process of life, in the process of mastery and growth and forward moving, and again, evolution, what you're supposed to do is then look at what goes forward and adjust yourself internally to be able to meet the next thing. And the next thing might be anything. It might be you enter a marriage and now you need to align yourself to the relationship and see how you could engage in that fully, in that life fully. Or it could be the next career thing. But for me, the adjustment was from immediately moving and acting to be able to settle down, focus my mind, and build something that is cohesive and consistent, and work on something that takes much longer, across a longer period of time. It's working on long form videos for my music career, Soul's Tragedy. Go listen. I should put the link in that, right? I think it's in my YouTube bio, right? But anyway, it is sitting down and producing something that takes much more skill, much more presence of mind, much more focus, much more, scrutiny, and a much more detail-oriented and patient mindset to be able to craft something much more intricately, right? And that takes a lot of things. That takes patience. That takes focus, that takes self-control, that takes relaxation, that takes time, a lot of time. And so it's not that I don't want to do these things, because when I imagine myself in those positions, and I'm absolutely positive you can relate, when you imagine yourself in the position of your ideal, when you're making things that are incredible, when you're being in a way that's incredible, when you're engaging with yourself and your environment and the people around you and your career and your fitness in a way that is ideal, it's you engage in it fully, you lose yourself in it, you immerse yourself in it, and you do it eagerly and consistently every day, and you're motivated by it every day. Why can't you do it? Because you haven't built the skill for it. Right? Like, you haven't developed a few different things. You haven't developed the inner control, the mental mastery, but you haven't been able to readjust yourself and control yourself so that you can engage in it fully and really absorb yourself in the task. And that's a very multifaceted thing. That takes inner control, that takes mental reprogramming, conscious, subconscious, that takes focus, like I talked about in my last video, master your thinking, that takes transmutation from a lot of things, like the video To Be a Wizard. You just gotta watch my shit, gang. You gotta watch it. It takes a lot of things to do this thing, but fundamentally, the reason that the struggle was much more fun than where you're at now is because you had the skill to engage with that much more immediately, and it was much more easily understood. Building something that's much more skill-based and complex and intricate and multi-layered and that needs to span a much longer time for him to develop, time for him to grow, right? If you want to be something, I was watching a video of, it was a reaction to a documentary, but the documentary is what is important. My bad again. I just scared your ass, didn't I? Vanoss Gaming. He's one of the biggest YouTubers to ever do it. A lot of people don't know about him now because he was famous about 10 years ago, but he beat the fuck out of YouTube. It's been like 12, 13 years. Every one of his videos gets probably at least 1 million views. And the level of detail and care that he put into his videos of his gaming content far exceeded anything that his friends were doing. And that's why he was able to succeed at such a high level. And that commitment to detail, it takes patience, it takes obsession, it takes everything. In a way, I think that his spirit and his inner was developed enough to be able to craft something like this much more. And it's not that you have to do that, but you have to do something like that, right? Or else you end up like everybody else does, where they get a stable job and a decent marriage. I broke my cigarette, bro. What the fuck? A stable job or a decent marriage, kids, and they sort of just mellow out and they die because they don't evolve from there on out. The point of life, to steal from the words of the great XXX Tentacion, not that I think he came up with it, but it just came into my head. The point of life is evolution. The point of life is to evolve. It's to grow. It's to change. And so the reason that the struggle was much more fun for you, that it was much more fun for me, is because the barrier for entry was lower and the reward seemed higher, right? And so that higher reward, it needs to be evident for you that you want to do it, and then you need to completely reorient yourself internally to be able to move in that direction and to be able to engage with the thing. Because oftentimes the thing that we want to engage with is too hard for us to engage with, and that's why we don't engage with it, obviously, right? And so you need to change. You need to completely reprogram the way that you look at the thing, the way that you engage with the thing, your ability to relax in the presence of the thing and absorb yourself in it. You need to have the level of patience and foresight to be able to work at something much more extremely long term and commit yourself to that thing again and again and again, even in the face of not knowing what your limitations are, not knowing if you're able to do the thing. The problem is this, and this is something that just came into my mind that I think is extremely true, is, what was it? The problem, it had something to do with skill. It had something to do with your inability to meet the thing. It has something to do with, what was I saying? I really want to get this back, so I'm actually gonna replay the video and then go see watch. Okay, I don't have the exact thing, but I came to something approximating, I think, what I was thinking about. So the problem is it's a bunch of different things, right? So one of the problems is that we tend to be blind to the things that are even possible for us. We tend to not, and it really is a few different things. We tend to be blind to, we tend to not know what our limitations are. We tend to be blind to what the thing requires. We tend to not be even aware of our ability to change. And we also really, a lot of people, they like visualization. They like the ability to see themselves as somebody that can engage with the thing. But a lot of people don't even realize the skill that it takes to do the thing that they want to do. Because at this next level, when you're at a certain level and when you're going up, it requires an entirely different you. It requires a new level of mastery, a new level of control, an evolution in who you are internally, because you've mastered everything below that. And everything below that, I think this is quite profound as well, tends to be more surface level and materialistic. It's like when we were cavemen and we had no immediate physical security in terms of housing and immediate dangers and food scarcity and all of these things. And when we came to a place of abundance, we were able to sit down and then be creative. In the same way, you need to evolve as we did as humans, as one person. You need to first establish a layer of financial security for yourself. But when you have those things in place, when you've sort of met the base level of being alive, or if that's already met for you, you now face the problem of evolving further beyond that, of now from mastering the more physical things of needing this and doing this and paying this bill and all of this, you now need to level up. And a lot of people, not knowing what to do, they sort of just become hedonistic, and then they consume, and then they get comfortable, and that ends up being their life, right? But you need to now develop yourself as you did externally, now internally. And in the way that you've mastered the outside things, you now need to master the inside things. And the problem becomes, from being a materialistic, task-oriented thing, it now becomes a creative one. It now becomes an issue of creation and evolution for yourself, right? I think this answered what I was talking about. I hope I didn't just skip over something that's like super profound. I'm sad I broke my cigarette. I like this thing. This is why the struggle was fun before. This is why it's not fun anymore. And if I find the answer to what I was talking about earlier, I think I covered it. It really is, because it's an abstract thing, and I think it's a really, really, really interesting thing. This process of evolution in your life, in the same way that everything evolves, and you should always be evolving. But this thing, like when you want to do something higher or something better or something greater, we tend to not realize the internal evolution that needs to happen to meet that. We tend to not realize the level of skill that it takes to just engage with that activity. And we also tend to not realize the limits. I was watching my last video. I'm not even fucking lying about this. I was watching my last video that I did, Master Your Thinking. I didn't even know that I could speak off the cuff like that. I didn't know that I could speak that quickly, to constantly grab at ideas while I was going without knowing what I was going to say next. That was something that was completely new to me, right? And so I was watching that, and that's part of what fueled this video, because we tend to not realize how far we can go. I didn't know I could do that. I really didn't know. And every video you'll see before that, go watch my other shit. I talk way slower, right? And we'll see what I do in the future. I don't want to put pressure on that kind of thing, but that's incredible. It was incredible to me. And as I engage in other tasks, I realize how much more is possible. And what an exciting thing that is, right? What an exciting thing. I start getting passionate about what I'm talking, and I start talking all nerdy. The limitations and the but yeah, so we tend to not realize that our limitations tend to be a lot farther than what we think they are. And we tend to not realize the ability of change that we're capable of. And most of us are completely blind to our internal worlds and the things that we can develop in that world, right? And all of that, and I see these things as ideas. I see them as like abstracts in my head, and I'm sort of trying to, I get like this feeling with like a word associated with it, with like a vague outline of an image, and I'm trying to grab at it, and that weird image, it's like a static. It's like a static in my head, but it's associated with something, and that association, I know what it is only because of my feeling. It's such a weird thing, but then when I describe it, it makes perfect sense. It's so weird, right? Anyway, this is why I think this is why the struggle, we tend to reminisce about the struggle days, and so do I, and so. But how exciting that there's more out there. There's more to learn. There's more to see, right? And so yeah.